Tom wiped the sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of oil behind. The summer sun beat down on his little garage, turning it into a furnace. He squinted at the old truck engine in front of him, a rusty mess of bolts and wires that refused to purr. His wrench slipped, and he cursed under his breath. It was just another day in his small town, quiet, predictable, and safe. The radio hummed in the background, playing some old country tune about lost love and open roads. Tom liked it that way. Simple. No surprises. Then the music stopped. Static crackled through the speakers, sharp and sudden. He frowned, tapping the radio with his knuckles, but it didn't help. A low rumble shook the ground beneath his boots. Tools rattled on the shelves, and a coffee mug crashed to the floor. Tom stepped outside, shielding his eyes against the sun, and froze. The sky wasn't blue anymore. A massive shadow stretched across it, bigger than any cloud he'd ever seen. It was a ship, metal, sleek, and endless, hovering above the earth like a giant predator watching its prey. People spilled out of their homes, staring upward, mouths open. A high-pitched whine pierced the air, making Tom wince and cover his ears. The ship didn't move, but the air grew cold, and a strange wind kicked up dust around his feet. Before he could process it, the ground trembled again, and two figures appeared in front of his garage. They were tall, humanoid, but not human. Their skin shimmered with a faint purple glow, and their eyes were too big, too bright. They wore uniforms, dark green with silver lines, that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. "Tom Miller," the taller one said. Her voice was clear, almost musical, but her lips moved a beat too late, like a bad dubbed film. "You are required under galactic law, Section 12. Come with us." Tom blinked, his wrench still in hand. "Galactic what?" "Look, I've got a truck to fix." "Whatever this is, it's got the wrong guy." The shorter alien tilted her head, pulling out a glowing tablet. "Tom Miller, age 32, mechanic, unmarried, no offspring. Genetic profile, viable. You are the right guy." She tapped the screen, and a beam of light shot out, freezing Tom in place. His muscles locked up, and the wrench clattered to the ground. "Don't fight it," the taller one said, her tone calm but firm. "This is easier if you cooperate. The law is clear. Every female of our kind must take a human mate. You've been chosen." "Chosen for what?" Tom managed to croak, his voice strained as the paralysis held him tight. They didn't answer. A flash of light swallowed him whole, and the world twisted. It felt like his insides were being yanked through a straw while electric sparks danced across his skin. When his vision cleared, he wasn't in his garage anymore. He stood in a wide, shimmering room with walls that glowed like liquid glass. The paralysis faded, leaving his legs wobbly. He stumbled, catching himself on a floating table that hummed under his touch. "Welcome to the Unity Station," a new voice said. Another alien approached, this one with lighter purple skin and hair that flowed like water. She wore a robe that shifted colors with every step. "I'm Administrator Nayla. You're here to help us." "Help you?" Tom straightened, brushing off his jeans, though the oil stains were somehow gone. "I didn't sign up for anything." "What's going on?" Nayla waved her hand, and a hologram flickered to life between them. It showed Earth spinning slowly, then zoomed out to reveal dozens of alien worlds, connected by glowing lines. "Our species is dying," she said simply. "Our genes are failing. We can't have children anymore, not healthy ones. But humans? You're different. Your DNA works with ours. It's why we made the law." Tom stared at the hologram, his mind racing. "So you're kidnapping people to, what, marry them?" "Not kidnap," Nayla corrected, her voice gentle. "Requisition. Your leaders agreed to this 3 months ago. In exchange, we gave them technology, clean energy, medicine. You're here to meet your potential mates. You have 30 days to choose one. Choose one. Tom laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. I don't even know you people. I fix trucks, not galaxies. Nayla's eyes softened, but she didn't back down. You'll understand soon. Tonight, you'll meet them. 4 women from our worlds. They've chosen you, Tom. Get ready. Before he could argue, the floor beneath him shifted, sliding him toward a set of doors that opened on their own. He stumbled into a massive hall, bigger than any building he'd ever seen. The ceiling sparkled with stars, real stars, like the room was open to space. Floating platforms hovered at different heights, each crowded with aliens, most with that same purple skin, though some had horns, tails, or glowing markings. All of them turned to look at him. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Is that the human? Someone whispered. He's shorter than I thought. Look at his hands, rough, strong. A worker. Tom felt his face heat up. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not like this. Nayla appeared beside him, her voice amplified for all to hear. This is Tom Miller of Earth. Tonight, he begins his journey under the galactic law. Let's welcome him. The crowd clapped, a strange mix of sounds, claps, hums, even a few chirps. Tom shifted uncomfortably, wishing he could crawl back to his garage. Then 4 figures stepped forward, each from a different platform, and his heart sank. They were all women, all alien, and all staring at him like he was the last piece of a puzzle they'd been trying to solve. The first was tall and muscular, her purple skin marked with silver scars. She carried a staff that crackled with energy. I'm Lyra, she said, her voice deep and steady. Warrior of the Tykar clans. I'll test your strength, human. The second was thinner, with sharp eyes and a tablet in her hands. I'm Kale, she said, her tone crisp. Scientist of the Viner Collective. Your mind interests me. The third had a regal air, her robe shimmering like a galaxy. I'm Vora, she announced. Leader of the Orith Dominion. I seek a partner worthy of my people. The last one floated down on a glowing disk, her silver hair wild and free. I'm Mira, she said with a grin. Voice of the Galactic Network. Everyone's watching, Tom. Let's make it fun. Tom swallowed hard, looking between them. Lyra's staff sparked. Kale's tablet beeped. Vora's eyes narrowed. Myra's disc hummed. He was a mechanic, not a hero, but something in their gazes stirred his curiosity. What did they see in him? And why did it feel like his quiet life was gone forever? Nayla leaned close, whispering, Don't run, Tom. This is your chance to show them what humans can do. Then she stepped back, leaving him alone with 4 alien women who wanted him, for reasons he couldn't yet grasp. The hall buzzed with excitement. Tom took a deep breath, his hands flexing like they were itching for a wrench. He didn't know what came next, but one thing was clear, the sky had changed, and so had his world. Maybe, just maybe, he could change theirs too. Tom stood in the center of the massive hall, the starry ceiling swirling above him like a dream he couldn't wake from. The 4 alien women, Lyra, Kale, Vora, and Mira, circled him, each with a look that made his stomach twist. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. Back home, the most he ever got was a nod from a customer happy with a fixed engine. Now, he was surrounded by beings from other worlds, all expecting something from him. He wiped his palms on his jeans, even though they were clean now, thanks to whatever magic the aliens used. Lyra stepped forward first, her staff tapping the floor with a sharp crack. Her silver scars gleamed under the starlight, and her violet eyes locked onto him. Strength matters where I come from, she said, her voice low and firm. If you're to be my mate, you need to prove you're not weak. Follow me. She turned and strode toward a platform that floated lower, revealing a wide, open space with shifting walls, like a training ground made of living metal. Tom hesitated, glancing at Nayla, who stood off to the side with a faint smile. "Go on," she said. "They won't hurt you, much." That didn't help his nerves, but he followed Lyra anyway, his boots echoing on the strange floor. The crowd above watched, their whispers buzzing like static. The platform stopped, and the walls around them twisted into a maze of obstacles, tall pillars, moving beams, and glowing traps that hummed with energy. Lyra spun her staff and faced him. "Get to the other side," she said. "Show me what you're made of." Tom eyed the maze. He wasn't a fighter. He'd never even thrown a punch outside of a bar scuffle once, and that hadn't gone well. But he knew machines, how they worked, how they broke, how to fix them. Maybe this wasn't so different. He took a step, dodging a beam that swung toward his head. It missed by inches, and he stumbled, catching himself against a pillar. Lyra raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. He didn't charge in like she probably expected. Instead, he watched. The beams moved in patterns, like pistons in an engine. The traps pulsed at regular intervals. He crouched low, timing it, then darted forward when the next gap opened. A glowing line on the floor sparked, but he jumped over it, landing hard. His knees ached, but he kept going, weaving through the chaos with more focus than grace. Halfway through, a wall shifted, blocking his path. Lyra smirked. "Strength isn't just speed, human." Tom gritted his teeth. He wasn't strong like her, but he was stubborn. He grabbed a loose metal rod from the ground, probably debris from the shifting walls, and jammed it into a gap where the wall met the floor. With a grunt, he pried it up, just enough to squeeze through. The crowd murmured, and Lyra's smirk faded into something like surprise. When he reached the other side, panting and sweaty, Lyra crossed her arms. "Not bad," she said. "You think like a warrior, even if you don't fight like one." Tom didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, catching his breath. Before he could rest, Kale stepped up, her tablet glowing in her hands. "Enough games," she said sharply. "I don't care about muscles. I need your brain." She tapped the screen, and the platform shifted again, this time into a room filled with strange machines, tubes, wires, and blinking lights. One of them sputtered, leaking a faint blue mist. "This purifier keeps our air clean," she said. "It's broken. Fix it." Tom stared at the machine. It wasn't a truck engine, but it had parts, gears, valves, something like a pump. He knelt beside it, ignoring the crowd's eyes on him. Kale watched, her sharp gaze making him feel like a bug under a microscope. He found a valve clogged with gunk and twisted it free with his fingers. The mist stopped, but the machine still whined. He traced the sound to a loose gear, then spotted a tool on Kale's belt, a small, glowing wrench. "Can I borrow that?" he asked. She handed it over without a word. He tightened the gear, adjusted a tube, and flipped a switch he hoped was the power. The machine hummed to life, steady and quiet. Kale's eyes widened slightly. "You understood it," she said. "No training, no data. Just instinct." "Instinct and a lot of broken engines," Tom muttered, wiping his hands. Kale didn't smile, but her nod felt like approval. Next came Vora, her regal robe trailing behind her as she led him to a new platform. This one was a circle with a holographic map floating above it, planets, stars, and lines connecting them. "Leadership isn't strength or smarts alone," she said. "It's judgment. Our trade routes are failing. Tell me how to save them." Tom scratched his head. He didn't know trade routes or planets, but he knew systems, how things flowed, how they broke down. The map showed red lines where shipments were delayed. "What's slowing them?" he asked. Vora pointed to a cluster of dots. "Raiders. They attack here, disrupt everything. Tom thought of his town's dirt roads, how he'd reroute deliveries when floods hit. Don't fight them head-on, he said. Change the paths. Send smaller ships through these side routes, he traced a few green lines, and keep the big ones as decoys. They'll chase the bait, not the goods. Vora studied the map, then him. Simple, but clever, she said. You see solutions where others see walls. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held a flicker of respect. Finally, Mira floated down, her disc humming as she grinned. My turn, she said, her energy a stark contrast to the others. The platform turned into a stage, with a crowd of holograms, billions of faces from across the galaxy, watching. They want to know you, Tom. Talk to them. Make them care. Tom froze. He wasn't a speaker. He fixed things, not feelings. But Myra's grin was infectious, and he couldn't back down now. Hi, he started, his voice cracking. The hologram stared. I'm Tom. I'm just a guy who fixes stuff. Trucks, mostly. I don't know much about your worlds, but I guess we're all trying to keep things running, right? Maybe that's what matters. The holograms cheered, their voices a roar. Mira clapped. Short, sweet, and real, she said. They love you already. Tom exhaled, his head spinning. The four women gathered around him now, each looking at him differently, Lyra with grudging admiration, Kale with curiosity, Vora with calculation, Mira with excitement. Nayla joined them, her voice soft. You did well, Tom. They're starting to see what humans can do. What's this really about? Tom asked, his patience thinning. You keep testing me. Why? Lyra spoke first. Our people are dying. Our children are born weak, if at all. Your kind can save us. Kale nodded. Your DNA adapts. It mixes with ours perfectly. We've never seen anything like it. Vora crossed her arms. But it's more than that. We need partners, not just breeders. Someone worthy. Mira winked. And someone who can handle the spotlight. You're a natural, Tom. Tom ran a hand through his hair, processing it all. So you're saying I'm supposed to marry one of you? To fix your species? Yes, Nayla said. But it's your choice. 30 days to decide. Get to know them. See what you think. He looked at the women again. Lyra, fierce and unyielding. Kale, sharp and probing. Vora, proud and steady. Mira, bright and bold. They were nothing like him, yet they saw something in him he didn't understand. His mind churned like an engine kicking into gear. Maybe this wasn't just about them picking him. Maybe he could pick them apart too, figure out what made them tick, what they needed beyond laws and DNA. I'm not promising anything, he said finally. But I'll try. One step at a time. Lyra smirked. Good. I like a challenge. Kale adjusted her tablet. I'll study you more. For science. Vora inclined her head. A wise start. Mira laughed. This is gonna be fun. The crowd above roared again, and Tom felt the weight of their eyes, billions of them, waiting to see what he'd do. He wasn't sure he could be what they wanted, but he'd faced worse than a stubborn engine. Maybe, just maybe, he could figure this out too. One test at a time. Tom stood on the edge of a floating platform, staring out at the Unity Station's endless corridors of glowing walls and shifting floors. The past few days had been a whirlwind, tests, talks, and the constant hum of alien eyes watching his every move. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore, he was something bigger, something he didn't fully grasp. The four alien women, Lyra, Kale, Vora, and Mira, had pushed him hard, and he'd pushed back in his own way. Now, they stood beside him, waiting for his next step. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. Nayla appeared, her flowing robe catching the starlight from the ceiling. "You've impressed them, Tom," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But the station's having problems. The core system's failing, power flickers, air's thinning. If it goes down, we all do. They want your help." Tom frowned. "I'm no engineer for spaceships. I fix trucks." "You fixed Kale's purifier," Nayla pointed out. "You see things differently. That's why they trust you." He glanced at the women. Lyra's staff tapped impatiently. Kale clutched her tablet, eyes sharp. Vora's gaze was steady, expectant. Mira grinned, her disk hovering nearby. They didn't just want his DNA, they wanted his mind, his hands, his stubborn streak. He sighed. "Fine. Show me this core." The platform glided toward a massive chamber deep in the station. The core loomed ahead, a towering machine pulsing with blue light, but the pulses were uneven, stuttering. Tubes snaked around it, some leaking faint wisps of vapor. A low groan echoed, like an engine on its last breath. Tom's gut twisted. He knew that sound, something was dying. Kale stepped forward, her tablet projecting a hologram of the core's insides. "It's the energy converter," she said. "It's overloading. Our techs can't find the flaw." Tom knelt beside it, running his fingers along a tube. It was warm, vibrating too much. He didn't understand alien tech, but he knew machines, how they breathed, how they broke. "What's it supposed to do?" he asked. "Turn raw energy into power for the station," Kale replied. "But the flow's unstable." He traced the tubes, spotting a valve clogged with a dark, sticky mess. "Looks like a fuel line with bad gas," he muttered. He grabbed a tool from a nearby rack, some kind of glowing pry bar, and popped the valve open. The mess oozed out, and the core's hum steadied for a moment, then faltered again. "It's deeper," he said, peering into the hologram. "Something's blocking the main chamber." He pointed to a glowing spot. "There. Can we get inside?" Lyra smirked. "Only if you're not afraid of tight spaces." She slammed her staff against a panel, and it slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel into the core's heart. Tom took a deep breath and crawled in, the pry bar in hand. The walls pulsed around him, hot and alive. He found the chamber, a massive gear-like piece jammed with debris. It wasn't high-tech, it was just junk, clogging the works. He wedged the bar in and heaved. The gear creaked, then spun free, and the core roared back to life. Light flooded the chamber, and Tom scrambled out, covered in sweat and grime. The station's hum steadied, and the air felt fresher. The women stared at him, wide-eyed. "You fixed it," Kale said, almost accusingly. "With no schematics." "Just common sense," Tom shrugged, wiping his hands. "Machines are machines." Vora crossed her arms. "You saved us. Again." Myra's disk zipped around him. "The galaxy's going nuts over this. Human save station with stick." Lyra gripped her staff tighter. "You've got a warrior's heart, even if you don't see it." Tom shook his head, uncomfortable with the praise. "Look, I'm not here to play hero. But this law, choosing one of you, it's bothering me. If I pick, what happens to the others? Your people need help, not just one of you." The women exchanged glances. Kale spoke first. "Our species are all fading. One match won't save everyone. Then why make me choose?" Tom asked, his voice rising. "Why not work together? All of us." Silence fell. Nayla tilted her head. "The law says you must take a mate. It doesn't say how many." Tom blinked. "Wait. You mean I could pick all of them?" Vora frowned. "It's never been done. Our cultures don't share like that. But humans do, Tom said, his mind racing. Back home, people team up all the time, families, crews, towns. Why not here? You need my DNA, my ideas, whatever. I'm not leaving 3 of you to die. Lyra laughed, a sharp, surprised sound. You're bold, human. Kale tapped her tablet. The genetics could work. Multiple pairings, diverse offspring. It's logical. Mira clapped her hands. Oh, this'll break the network. A human with 4 alien wives. Vora hesitated, then nodded. If it saves my people, I'll consider it. Nayla smiled faintly. You'll need to convince the council. They're traditional. 1 mate, 1 bond, that's the rule. Then let's change the rule, Tom said, his voice firm. I'm not here to follow someone else's plan. I fix things my way. The platform shifted again, taking them to a grand chamber filled with aliens in robes and armor, hundreds of them, seated on floating tiers. The Galactic Council. A tall figure with faded purple skin stood at the center, his voice booming. Tom Miller of Earth, you're 30 days near their end. Have you chosen? Tom stepped forward, the women behind him. Not exactly, he said. I've got a better idea. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The elder, High Chancellor Torin, narrowed his eyes. The law is clear. 1 mate. Tom held his ground. Your law's dying with your people. You need humans to survive, right? Then listen. I'm not picking one and leaving the rest to fade. I'll take all 4, Lyra, Kale, Vora, Mira. We'll make it work. Together. The chamber erupted. Some shouted in outrage, others in awe. Torin raised a hand, silencing them. A human dares rewrite our ways. I'm not rewriting, Tom said. I'm fixing. You've got a problem, your species are failing. I've got a solution. More humans, more bonds, more chances. Why limit it? Lyra stepped up. He's proven his strength. I stand with him. Kale nodded. His logic holds. I agree. Vora's voice rang out. He's worthy of leadership. I join him. Mira grinned. The galaxy's watching, Chancellor. I'm in. Torin stared at them, then at the council. This is madness. A single human, binding 4 nations. Not madness, Tom said. Teamwork. Humans don't give up. We adapt. Let us show you. The council debated, voices clashing. Some called it blasphemy, others a miracle. Tom waited, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure if this would work, but he'd seen enough broken engines to know, sometimes you had to tear it apart to build something better. Hours passed. Finally, Torin spoke. We'll vote. If this fails, human, you'll answer for it. Tom nodded. Fair enough. The vote was close, too close, but it passed. Cheers and protests filled the air. Nayla leaned close. You've started something big, Tom. They're calling it the Alliance now. He looked at his new partners. Lyra's scars glinted with pride. Kale's tablet glowed with new data. Vora stood tall, regal as ever. Myra's disc spun excitedly. Guess we're in this together, he said. Lyra smirked. You'll need more than luck, human. Kale adjusted her tablet. And more tests. For science. Vora inclined her head. We'll lead as one. Mira laughed. This is gonna be epic. Tom felt the weight of it all, the station, the galaxy, the future. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was a bridge, a spark, a chance. And he'd make it work, one fix at a time. Outside, the galaxy buzzed. Word spread fast, protests from traditionalists, hope from the desperate. Tom's name echoed across worlds, a symbol of something new. He didn't know what came next, but he knew one thing: humans didn't quit. And neither would he. Tom leaned against the railing of the Unity Station's central dome, staring out at the stars. The galaxy stretched before him, a vast sea of light and shadow, and for the first time, it didn't feel so foreign. The past month had turned his life upside down, taken from his garage, tested by alien women, and thrust into a role he never wanted. Now, he stood with Lyra, Kale, Vora, and Mira, not just as their chosen mate but as part of something bigger, the Alliance. The Galactic Council had approved it, barely, and the station buzzed with the aftermath, hope, anger, and everything in between. The dome's walls shimmered, reflecting the faces of his new partners. Lyra sharpened her staff nearby, her movements precise and calm. Kale sat cross-legged, her tablet glowing as she studied data. Vora stood tall, her robe catching the light as she spoke quietly with Nayla. Mira floated on her disk, chattering to her network's audience about the human who changed it all. Tom still wasn't used to it, the attention, the responsibility, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward them. They were his crew now, strange as that was. Nayla approached, her expression serious. The council's decision is final, but it's not over, she said. Your alliance is a spark. Some want to fan it into a fire. Others want to snuff it out. Tom nodded, his hands flexing like they missed a wrench. Let me guess, more tests. Not tests, Nayla replied. Proof. Your bond must show results. The galaxy's watching. Before he could ask what she meant, Kale stood abruptly, her tablet beeping. Tom, she said, her voice sharp with excitement. Come look at this. He joined her, peering at the screen. It showed swirling patterns, DNA strands, he guessed, though they were alien to him. What am I seeing? He asked. Us, Kale said. All of us. Our genetics are merging. Faster than I thought. Look, she pointed to a new strand, glowing brighter. Hybrid markers. It's working. Tom's stomach flipped. You mean, kids? Kale nodded, a rare smile breaking her usual calm. Yes. All four of us. At once. The words hit him like a loose bolt. He turned to the others, who'd overheard. Lyra stopped sharpening her staff, her violet eyes wide. Vora's regal mask slipped, showing a flicker of awe. Myra's disc wobbled as she gasped, then laughed. Oh, this is huge. The galaxy's gonna lose it. Tom ran a hand through his hair. All four. Already? How? Your adaptability, Kale explained. Human DNA doesn't just mix, it rewrites. Our species were failing, but you fixed us. Lyra stepped closer, her voice softer than usual. My clan will have warriors again. Because of you. Vora touched his arm, a rare gesture. My people will survive. You've given us a future. Mira hugged him, her energy contagious. And I get to tell the story. Tom, you're a legend. He didn't feel like a legend. He felt overwhelmed, a little scared, but also, proud. So what now? He asked. We just wait. No, Nayla said. You lead. The council wants evidence this alliance can hold. Show them. The next few days were chaos, good chaos, mostly. The station became their home, a sprawling wing designed for 5. The bedroom was massive, with a bed big enough for them all, though it took time to figure out. Lyra slept stiffly at first, like a soldier on watch, but soon relaxed against him. Kale curled up with her tablet, muttering equations until she drifted off. Vora stayed poised even in sleep, her hand resting on his. Mira sprawled across them all, laughing about cozy ratings. It was strange, but it worked. Their bond grew beyond the bedroom. Lyra taught him combat moves, simple ones he could handle, her scars brushing his skin as she adjusted his stance. Kale dragged him to her lab, explaining alien tech until he started tweaking it himself, blending human tricks with her science. Vora included him in strategy talks, valuing his practical ideas. Mira pulled him into broadcasts, his awkward words somehow charming billions. Then came the first real test. A distress signal hit the station. A mining colony on a nearby planet, run by Vora's people, was collapsing. The council demanded the Alliance respond. "Show us your worth," Torrens' hologram warned. Tom and his crew boarded a sleek ship, the women in their element, Lyra at weapons, Kale on navigation, Vora commanding, Mira relaying updates to the galaxy. Tom felt out of place until they landed. The colony's power grid was fried, tunnels caving in. "Fix it," Vora said, her voice steady but urgent. He dove in, tools in hand. The grid was a mess, wires melted, generators stalled. He didn't know their tech, but he knew power flow. With Kale's help, he rerouted circuits, using spare parts to patch gaps. Lyra cleared debris with her strength, Vora directed survivors, and Mira kept morale up, broadcasting their work. Hours later, the grid hummed alive, lights flickering on. The miners cheered, and Tom grinned, wiping grime from his face. Back on the station, Torrens' hologram flickered in. "Impressive," he said. "The Alliance holds. For now." Word spread fast. The hybrid pregnancies became a galactic headline, proof humans could save dying worlds. Lyra's clan sent warriors to train with Tom, awed by his quiet strength. Kale's scientists launched a DNA program, based on his genes. Vora's Dominion pledged resources, calling him the Bridge. Myra's network exploded, dubbing him Father of the Future. But not everyone was happy. Protests flared, traditionalists who hated change, species fearing human dominance. A small fleet even blockaded a trade route, demanding the Alliance end. Tom watched it unfold on Myra's screens, his jaw tight. "They think I'm ruining everything." "You're building something new," Vora said. "They'll see." He wasn't so sure, but he didn't back down. With his crew, he met the blockade, unarmed, on Myra's broadcast. "We're not here to take over," he said, his voice steady. "We're here to help. Let us prove it." He offered tech fixes for their ships, food from Vora's stores. Slowly, the blockade eased, won over by his plain honesty. Months passed, and the pregnancies grew. Lyra's belly rounded, her pride fierce. Kale analyzed every scan, fascinated. Vora carried herself with quiet joy. Mira teased about little stars on air. Tom felt their warmth every night, their trust in him unshakable. He wasn't just a mate, he was theirs, and they were his. One evening, they sat together in the dome, stars above. Lyra leaned against him, her staff still. Kale rested her head on his shoulder, tablet off for once. Vora held his hand, her grip firm. Mira nestled close, her disc quiet. "We did it," she whispered. "We changed everything." "Not everything," Tom said, smiling. "Just enough." The galaxy shifted around them. New laws passed, human-alien unions became a choice, not a demand, inspired by their alliance. Colonies thrived, hybrids were born, strong, healthy, a blend of both worlds. Tom's name faded from headlines, but his impact didn't. He taught his kids, for little ones with violet eyes and human grit, how to fix things, how to think, how to care. Years later, he stood in a workshop on the station, tools scattered around. His oldest, a girl with Lyra's scars and his stubbornness, handed him a wrench. "Like this, Dad?" she asked, tweaking a small engine. Close, he said, guiding her hands. Keep at it. Outside, the galaxy hummed with life, new alliances, new hopes. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And it started with a man who wouldn't quit, for women who believed in him, and a law that bent until it fit. Tom looked at his family, then the stars, and grinned. Sometimes, the best way to fix a problem was to rebuild it, together.